and I'll give you the key. It's easy. Just keep on hopping, keep on rocking, and don't start stopping. Everything you need just to walk the scene. And if you wanna make it better, you give it to me, I'll grease it. I believe for you, you wouldn't believe what I see in you. So don't stop, don't let the dream drop hop. Hold up and make it lovely, make it real, and make it yours. Don't stop.
All right, Jerry, I'm super excited to have you on the show. I've been recently bringing on people that I personally know instead of people that I reach out to based on their knowledge bank. And so I met you at the WGISS conference in Spokane, Washington, which is the Women in Strength Sports Conference. That's kind of hard to say. Anyway, which was a really awesome experience. There were so many really great people there, tons of coaches and athletes all learning about different lifting techniques and different realms of strength sports and nutrition and all sorts of awesome stuff. So it was a really great conference. I came away from it with a lot of friends. So I'm super excited to have you joining me on the show.
Thanks, Connie. Yeah, no, I'm freaking pumped to be here. And like, just like you said, like that conference was, it was great. It was easily the best conference I've been to, actually, because I'm kind of conferenced out, to tell you the truth. Like I hadn't been in a few years. I'll send my coaches if they want to go sometimes, but most of the time I'm not looking at them anymore as, like, oh, like what are the topics? What can I learn from? Because it's one of those things, like I've been doing this 17 years, like there aren't many things that I want to go see someone talk about very often. But when I shifted my mindset roughly 6 months before the conference, and I'm like, you know what, like if I think about it in terms of who might be there, people I can meet, watching the instructors and how they teach, like all of a sudden, I think this could be like a lot, this could just be like a much better experience. And I went and it was just freaking awesome. Like, yeah, from the information to the people. And it was funny because, and I don't know if you remember, but I was literally one of 3 guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it had never crossed my mind at any point until showing up that might be a thing. I've worked with over 50% of my clients have been female from day one. So I like it never crossed my mind that it might not be even. I was like, oh, what's up? Guy 2, guy 3, and like dozens of females.
Yeah. Well, and it was great because we all had such a great time, like learning each other's backgrounds and what they do and what they like to teach. And that's kind of why I ended up going, is I wanted to learn different ways to teach people how to do things, as well as different facets of the strength sports in general, because I think everybody knows was a bodybuilder. I don't know what I am. I don't know how I identify, Jerry.
A Renaissance athlete.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how I identify. Like right now, I'm like kind of endurance, kind of lift some weights, kind of do some racing things. I don't know. I kind of do everything. But anyway, I wanted to get more into that kind of stuff. And it was really, really cool to learn all these different techniques and like the equip lifting and the strongman. And so I had a really great fun time. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the quality of people was fantastic and made the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And because like I mean, people like you, like we literally met there, had never had, never crossed each other's radar, which makes sense since you lived like 40 minutes away and I live 2,000 miles away.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then a combination of some people close to me, like South Carolina group there, and as well as people like Dana Snow, who kind of put the whole thing together, and she's a USA powerlifting like legend.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to her for about probably a year via email, but had never actually had a chance to meet, have real conversations, and to bring all that together is just definitely cool. And I'm glad, they're like, it's people that I've just like this have been consistently keeping in touch with, whether it's commenting on social media, supporting each other when they post like a victory that they have, or something, like setting a new PR, getting back to the competition platform, like you name it. There are, I mean, I would say like at least 10 people from that conference so far that have still stayed in touch with. at least every couple of weeks. Again, even if it's just that touch, high five, whatever it is, like
Mm-hmm.
there aren't too many different things you can get that with.
Yeah, no, I love the community, and it's always great meeting new people, and I love learning from people. I mean, we all have so many different techniques and ideas and ways of thinking about things that I always try to remain open-minded when I'm talking to people and listening to the way they like to do things.
Yep.
So, but yeah, so today I kind of wanted to chat with you. So you primarily are coaching teenage athletes for the most part in your business, which is really, really cool. And there's a lot of directions we can go with that, but you're also starting, the reason I wanted to chat with you is because you're starting with people at a really young age. And so I kind of wanted to talk about creating like sustainable fitness patterns, because I'm sure many of the kids that you're working with, you're making like a lifelong impact on them, something that hopefully they're going to take away with them and use as a tool in their toolkit for the rest of their life.
Right. Yeah. And that's it's the type of thing that, you know, it took me a while to get to get accustomed to the idea of staying with it, but you are right. It is a lifelong impact. And again, it's not just from seeing that, but also hearing that over and over again. And I mean, like you said, with the young age, it's like I basically have literally gone backwards in my career. Like I started, you know, just for a few years doing part-time personal training in when I was still in college and undergrad. You know, so that was just whoever it was. So whether they be like high schoolers, you know, slightly younger than me, college students, or some adults, you know, brand new into fitness. Then I got into college strength and conditioning. So it was that 18 to 22, 23-year-old crowd for the most part, you know, like elite athlete, yet still varied training levels when it comes to strength and conditioning. And now, yeah, like as of 7 years ago when I opened the gym, it's been, you know, like I said, like roughly 2/3, 70% high schoolers and middle schoolers. And we've even got a kids program that's been growing and doing really well, that has kids as young as 4 in it.
I love
So
that. That's so awesome. I
yeah,
think
and
you met the Muncies, right? That
yeah,
were at, and they were the strongman trainers, and they posted on their Instagram, their little guy, I think he's like 2 years old, maybe about that age. They have like little foam barbells and dumbbells for him, and he works out with them. And it's like, man, they're teaching him that strong is cool right off the bat.
yeah, exactly. And like kids don't have that filter until they're told to about not about the things they can't do. And you know, some of them might be a little bit more worried than others, but as soon as they try it and find out they can do it, they're usually fine. And then also, you know, like you think about the way that we learn how to move, like, you know, this is the way that works for standing up, for a baby learning how to walk. There's actually been and this isn't like a new idea, this has been around forever, is that, for example, babies or kids, you know, toddlers have like perfect squat technique.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Time.
once they figure it out, like, but it's just that like baby squat to pick things up or something is like a natural, perfect human movement. And it's usually only when they start no longer moving all the time or naturally, like just, you know, enter hours and hours of forced sitting or things like that in chairs, that starts to possibly be lost more. And then by the time they get to middle school, high school, if they lose it, then they have to basically learn it again. So there's like all that type of stuff that, yeah, like a lot of what these kids are doing, like and when I say kids, I can use it interchangeably for any age in that group. I just keep calling them all kids. I'm at that age now.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, like as long as they keep doing it, there's really no limit. And that's a big part of what we do, is that there is like, especially the younger it goes, there is literally no limit as to what we allow a kid to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's completely self-regulated. I mean, we program them, we guide them, we tell them to stop, or, you know, when to do things like that. Like we tell them what to do. Like it's completely full of guidance, but we don't have preconceived limitations of what that kid can do at any age.
Mm-hmm.
Which is honestly a big part of how we got, like, or how some people find us, is there aren't really many gyms total, but, you know, especially around where I'm at in Morgantown, West Virginia, for example, a lot of gyms still have that old school, like nobody under 16 allowed, nobody under
Mm-hmm.
14 allowed. And
Mm-hmm.
so sometimes parents come in and, you know, it might be like a strong, athletic 13-year-old taller than I am, which that happens all the time, who, you know, it's like, oh, like, you know, you were the only gym that we've heard great, like let me start over. You're the only gym who even works with kids this age. And then we looked into it and saw nothing but great things. So we were really excited to try it.
Mhm.
And that goes all the way down. Like our kids program, for example, has that. And other, like, there's only one or two other kids programs I know of, really, like, I mean, nationally, so to speak.
Mhm.
And they all have very, again, those preconceived limits. It's a safety first mentality. I mean, it makes sense where it comes from, but it'll be like, okay, no, don't lift anything over 12 pounds until you're 12 years old. And it's like, seriously? I mean, it's like, that's a gallon, and like that's less than 2 gallons of water.
Yeah. Well, and that was one thing that always frustrated me is like my kids, when I didn't have a gym in my basement, now I have a sweet gym. I don't got to worry about it. We all work out together. But my son would be like, I want to go to the gym with you, but he couldn't because it was 14 or older. You couldn't invite them to come with you or learn any of that. So none of your fitness love could even rub off of it on them at that point, really.
Yeah, like I remember, like I started for the first 6-7 years, I lifted at a local YMCA. I mean, I love that place because of that. Like, just a small little weight room, nothing big, but I still remember that big, enormous thing of rules on the wall. And that was definitely one of them, was like nobody under, I think it said 16 unless accompanied by, like a YMCA trainer or something like that. And yeah, I was 13 when I started back then in 1996. So like, but I still remember that list of rules.
Hmm.
And it's funny because then I worked in college where there were rules, especially the second director I worked under was very stickler for a lot of specific things, like no sitting in the weight room, no yawning, etc. That when I opened this gym, Viking Performance, it was okay. I care about results, and I care that the people who come here have fun or at least enjoy training, and that's it. It's like those are the only two things like that matter for me. I specifically tell people, we are not a safety first gym. I am not a safety first guy, because if you do things correctly, it'll be safe anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Actually, you crack me up. If anybody needs to get a good laugh, they should just go over to your social media. You've got some great things on there. But you were cracking me up the other day. You've got a rubber chicken and there it is.
Yep. Oh yeah.
There it is. And you're going up there and messing with everybody with the rubber chicken. And I was like, oh my goodness, this thing is great.
Yeah, like, and and people connect with it. And when I messaged you right before we got on this recording, because I was going live really quick with a short, I had a short break. I wanted to go live sometime today, and you might come across this later, but we have a high schooler out there who's like been decorating the gym with Halloween stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I started the live video wearing this guy.
Giant pumpkin.
See this? It's a giant pumpkin head mask. And then had the phone flipped, recording the mask, and then I actually had on this underneath the pumpkin mask. Came back to me, I was just wearing my Jason Friday the 13th mask, and like I said, it's like you can kind of say it's purposeful as a business owner, but it's purposeful in the sense that I just several years ago, like I was like, I'm just gonna be me.
Yeah.
It's like, and the whole reason, like not to go into like a tangent or anything, but I'm kind of a minority in strength and conditioning, because that's what I consider myself. That's where I started, and in the sense that I did not get the strength and conditioning through sports. Like I was not a high school athlete or college athlete. I got serious into martial arts and like MMA before it was anywhere near what it is now. And that's what got me really serious about training. But that was all like internally directed. Like that was yeah. So I mean, I got hooked on training because I enjoyed it, and enjoyed both training and then also just learning about it and all the variables you can work with. And to me, that's what was so fun about it, or like that was just the enjoyable part about it. So it wasn't like I wasn't one of these people who like say I hit 24 years old, for example, and sports has been my life. So the only thing I know to do or want to do is just simply remain in sports. like, which there's nothing wrong with that at all. I just mean like that wasn't my path. So my path was literally, I enjoyed the weight room. A lot of my best friends ever I've met in the weight room.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just made sense that when opening this place, it was like, okay, like, that's going to be the key. And it's just going to be through being myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like myself plus training. So yeah, that involves rubber chickens, Halloween masks, and whatever else random nonsense comes in, because I'm a very randomized person.
I love it. Well, so one thing I really love is you guys are working solely on performance. So this is not coming from an aesthetics point of view, which I think is really, really important, especially with today's youth, because they have so much pressure on them to look a certain way. Society's pressures are crazy, right? And
Right.
I think that even us as parents, we have to be careful, right? Like myself, when I used to do lots of bodybuilding, I started noticing my daughter would be like, "Hey, look, I have a 2-pack of abs," she would say. And she's like 3 years old. And then like I noticed that once I wasn't like, because I spent like 5 years totally shredded in front of my kids, right? And she turns like
Oh
6,
yeah.
and I start like getting back to what a normal person looks like. And she's like, "Mom, you got fat on your tummy."
Yep.
And it's not that she was like being mean or anything, but I had talked about how I would just, I mean, I was talked about how I had abs all the time, or like that stuff comes up when that's what you're training for. It comes into your home. And next thing you know, my child is scoping it out to see if she has abs, and she's noticing, thinks that I'm fat. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh crap, we've got a big problem here. If my 6-year-old thinks that I'm fat overlooking normal, then we need to re-normalize what normal should look like. And so that took a lot of work on my part as a parent, not saying things in front of my child like, "Oh, I need to lose weight," like, or "I need to go work out to look a certain way," or examining my body basically needed to become a non-existent thing in my household.
Yeah, that 1,000% of what you said. And one thing I really want to point out from what you said for everybody listening is, so I don't have kids on my own, I'm gonna say yet, who knows, but I have worked with, at this point, I've worked with at least a couple of thousand at like kids under the age of 18. And we find it's like coaching in any field is like has some degree of counseling involved, whether it's therapeutic or planning, who knows, like that type of thing. But so being a counselor is, in fact, that's something that actually should be taught in curriculums, but isn't. um, but somebody wants a niche that is, a blue water niche. There you go, counseling for
Mm-hmm.
but it's like, get back to my train of thought. Yeah, so with that counseling is like I found that do it like helping athletes, talk to them throughout the day, but at least my role at the gym now, like not just the not just the athletes, but since I'm also the primary communicator with parents when it comes to either updates, finding out their future plans, or they ask me questions, etc., is I actually at this point in time I would say I counsel parents more so than athletes. And it's the result of having been with thousands of athletes of this age. And I remember that like the parent, like you as the parent, for example, I mean, you have 4 kids, right? 4,
I
I
have
think.
2.
Okay. Oh,
Yep.
shit. I'm not
Yeah.
like,
No,
well, somehow
4. Oh man, I don't know if I can handle that. I can hardly
I'm
handle
seeing
1
double.
or 2. Yeah.
Oh no. So, edit note: Connie has 2 kids, not 4.
Yeah, that's all
Yeah.
right.
So parents only go like a parent is, dealing with a 14-year-old, for example. It might only be their first, second, third time with a 14-year-old. Like
Mhm.
they like it is new to them, or they like really, and throw in the fact that everybody's individual, and just because you had one 14-year-old earlier doesn't mean you know what's wrong, what's going on with this 14-year-old. Whereas I have literally had 1,000 14-year-olds,
Mhm.
in the gym. So figuring out what they're thinking is something I've actually become very good at. And here's the thing that most people forget is that when it comes to kids, and of course this is bigger the younger it goes, is their actual perspective or field of perspective and experience is legitimately smaller. So, they've only been through like you said with your daughter, 6 years or 10 years or 14 years of life. They don't have 20, 30, 40, 50 like we might. And, so they have literally less years of life. They have a smaller world. They have seen less things. So everything has a definitive greater impact and importance in their life. So things that we can look back on and tell kids that it's not a big deal, or, like things that we know later are not important overall, like that is true later, but it is not necessarily true now.
Mm-hmm.
So so just because we can look back on it and say that at some point in time, that changed. But a 15-year-old who, has a bad breakup or like something like that, or had somebody say something mean on an Instagram post, something like that, who was nervous, like we may know that shouldn't be a big deal. And that same 15-year-old, when they're 23, may understand it's not a big deal. But at 15, with only 15 years of life experience and 2 years of high school experience and 4 years of Instagram experience, it is going to be a big deal, because it is literally a bigger percentage of their life and their brain.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like that relative value does change. And that is a key to understanding so many things that kids and teens go through.
I love that. That's a great perspective. And I am so thankful that you brought that up, because we don't think about that part. We think with our wisdom from the years going by, but at the time when we were the same age, it was the same problem.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's one of those things. I mean, honestly, like I said, I've been doing this for a long time, but that really just became super clear to me probably within the last year because of the COVID responses.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, I would just say that was probably that final catalyst. Like, it's something I would say that I had been like just learning throughout over time, but I never brought it together to that like big cohesive thought or like lesson until starting to work with a lot of these kids afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Like after things have been shut down with COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, that's a really interesting thing. So are you guys helping with nutrition at all in your when you're doing your coaching, or are you just doing the workout programming?
yeah, directly it's just the workout programming, but our style of coaching, relationships are a very big part of that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, like we're a very open space type of coaching. Like I consider like
Mm-hmm.
open floor coaching. It's not like one trainer is with you all the time. It can be, but we have like literally 3 of those clients. All the
Mm-hmm.
rest are being coached like open floor setup. Everybody's got their own workout. Coaches are going back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
So that involves to make that work. We have to get to know them.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, like not just what they want to train and how that's going and how their form is, but actually get to know them. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
how's school, how's this, how's whatever. And a big part of that is bringing up those, especially earlier. I would say like earlier in the equation with working with younger athletes, we do talk more about general habits, everything from nutrition, how's that going, what are you eating, giving them feedback tips, especially if something just is really out of whack, or we know that it's like what their goal is and they need to do something. um and then as they become to like trust us and also see us as more of an expert with things like that, they'll come up to us with more significant questions. And so yeah, so it's not a direct work with nutrition, but we give them, but it's more like just like a basic mentoring. And really, and it goes back to the same ideas before. Things that we may take as like some of the most basic nutrition information doesn't mean that a 16-year-old will know that. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean this. It doesn't mean that an adult will know that. Like
Right.
basic, again, quote unquote basic things like fat is 9 calories per gram, carbs and protein are 4.
Yeah.
Like some of the first things you ever learn in nutrition, but that doesn't mean other people know it. So keeping that. So for us, a lot of the big ones are getting them to eat usually more. So
Mm-hmm.
that is very few of these kids eat enough. Like a lot of them will be like a basically graze maybe 2 meals through the day, especially if they're busy. So they're probably functioning at much lower levels than they could. Hydration's another big one. Like we've gotten a lot of kids to do the gallon of water thing at schools, like just actually taking the gallon of water at school,
Mm-hmm.
uh, which is awesome. like those are the main ones for us when it comes to nutrition. I see just like the really just most basic principles to get them to improve stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
then occasionally we'll help somebody like more like target something specific if they're looking for it. Like ironically, we have more athletes who come to us wanting to gain weight than lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say it's probably not ironic being in sports performance, but just compared to a lot of what a lot of fitness people are used to, they're
Yeah.
not used to having like like I'd say half of our athletes don't have a goal when it comes to weight. It's again just simply performance, but they
Mm-hmm.
usually end up gaining weight as a result, and plus they get older. But then those who do, it's overwhelmingly wanting to gain weight like than it is lose weight.
Yeah, I just was curious because I know, right, with like we'll just use wrestling as an example, right? You've got kids that a lot of times have interesting eating habits. And I've had to do some nutrition for some college, or not college, but a high school and college athletes. And I find with the high school athletes that I don't want to give someone an eating disorder over explaining things either. So I have found that working with it in a different way than you would with a normal weight loss client. I mean, you kind of have to deal with nutrition in a different way. And so and the way that comes down to the way you talk about things and everything, right? So that's one thing I've always had in the back of my head, is making sure that you don't demonize anything either when you're working with young people.
Yeah, exactly. Like we just over time, I've just given some very, very easy kind of instructions to like the coaching staff we've accumulated here. But said most of them are great because they're all here for the right reason. They're all here for the reason to help the clients out, to help the kids out. And so most of them kind of understand it intuitively. But we do have like for example, is we have a lot of gymnasts, and like that number
Mm-hmm.
keeps increasing. And that's one of those really basic rules is do not bring nutrition up to gymnasts unless they ask. Like help them with anything they ever ask for. But just kind of like you said, just as a demographic, if we're going to be honest, that sport has a higher rate of eating disorders.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so it's just simply don't bring it up, because since we do get to see them as performance, and we have the like relatively unbiased view of we're here to help them like with their performance tools, we're going to see if they start becoming unhealthy, or at least like that, like if something is not progressing the way it should, like that we're going to see that, and that would open up a conversation for that.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily we have not, luckily, like knock on wood, I have not seen it happen since I worked in college.
Mm-hmm.
uh, but it's like otherwise, and kind of similar with other athletes who may seem like really, really lean,
Mm-hmm.
and who just, if it was simply a visual test, you might be like, this could go either way. Like there could be some malnourishment here, but we
Yeah.
don't know that. Like there's occasional other things. There might be underlying conditions they're working with and fighting. So again, like we are like we're instructed to just simply, again, focus on the performance, focus on the improvement. If an athlete is showing week after week that they are continuing to become better as an athlete,
Mm-hmm.
then at least they're not at what I would consider like danger level for us
Yeah.
to a conversation and possibly create a situation where there wasn't anything.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, especially because you and I both know that you don't progress if your nutrition is totally out of whack. And that could be in the form of an eating disorder, or the other way, or a nutrient deficiency somewhere. So your training just straight up doesn't progress. And you guys would be the first to know that if that was something that was going on.
Exactly, and it's great because I mean it's like some like a lot of athletes, male and female, are pretty open at actually talking about their weight, and they understand it. Like when everything else they're around is based like on like kind of science and like well put together and healthy, they normally understand, at least at some point they understand that weight is part of that, and that changes in weight are expected, if even not welcome, up or down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, and again, that kind of comes with knowing them. And that's where, like, when you put in longer time in, like, because that's one of the other things that's here is, like, especially with some of the younger athletes, is we will have some of these athletes, 3-4 years, either the whole time or on and off, like come in for 4, 5, 6 months at a time, leave for 2 or 3, come back. And so we see them through development, and we also just get to know them like that. And like our longest athlete right now is over 6 years continuous. Like, she started as a high school freshman, and she's a college junior right now.
Oh wow.
And still training. And what's funny is she's a college goalkeeper now, soccer. She I mean, she's an average or slightly above average height for a female. She's like 5'7" probably. Her younger sister, who was I'm talking, bring this up because of the development, was in 5th grade when we started training the older one. And or no, wait, probably 6th grade. Yeah, that would be right. So we started training the older one at 9th. The younger one was in 6th grade, and like up to my hip, And later in 7th grade, she got allowed to start training with us as well. And by the time she was a sophomore, she was taller than her older sister. And she's a soccer defender, but she's like 2.5 inches taller than her older sister. Because of being a goalkeeper, every half inch matters, and you're angry about it, and it's just really funny. But but anyway, the whole reason I brought that up is, again, like, so we knew this girl, the younger one, from when she was, I mean, I don't know, but probably like 85 pounds. She probably honestly weighs like 163, 165 or something now. But again, she's just tall, strong, like one of the strongest people on the field, no matter who she plays, and all that stuff. And it just comes with it. And so a lot of times it's like, I know that if people are like one step removed, they may not understand that. Like a high school girl, her height, for example, frame, they may think like, oh, like she's heavy, but it's like not like, as soon as you come into it, it's like, no, she's not. She's just really strong.
Yeah.
and she knows that because she's been in that environment for years.
Well, and especially because in young people, their bone density even changes, right? So when you pick up and set down heavy things, your bone density and everything changes. And that's something that I try to get out there to even adults. I'm like, listen, if you start strength training now, you are going to be protecting your bone health up into your older years. You're not going to be that person at more than likely not going to be the person at the old folks home falling down and breaking a hip or breaking wrists or being fragile, because your body adapts not just with muscle tissue, but also your bone as well.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like every piece of it is adapting. And so, like, we're blessed in the sense that I feel very good about, like, how almost, if not every single young athlete here, like, sees themselves in that way. We know, like, again, we feel very strongly that the ones who may not look at themselves that confidently, like that way, or as their body, are improving, because that's one of the things too. Like, to me, if you do work with just younger population, period. And again, really, this same lesson applies for everybody. But since I am looking at it this way, is it was probably like, we've been open a little over 7 years. It was probably at least 5, maybe 6 years before anybody actually called or came in the door and said something, looking to get help my kids become more confident. But that is what every single one was experiencing before that. So they would all come in thinking themselves, or saying, like, stronger on the field, want to get faster, jump higher, make this, improve their chances at making the starting position, or making the team, try to get noticed for college, get a college scholarship. Those are the external, like, black and white factors that we always hear. But then when they come in, they see themselves getting stronger. They get the positive feedback loop of that. Like, to me, that's why performance is so great. There is, like, if you do it right, there is a very positive feedback loop And when you perform better, you feel better. Like
Mhm.
just nobody performs better and feels worse.
Yeah,
Like that's
absolutely.
not part of human neural wiring. So everybody feels better. Like I said, like age doesn't even matter in that. Everybody performs better and thus feels better about it. Their confidence goes up as they're feeling better about it. And and that happens, whether they came in confident or they came in unconfident. Like regardless, there is that improvement. And so eventually it became to the point where enough people talked about that either in reviews, testimonials, word of mouth, that it actually hit a point to where parents who were looking for it actually started thinking of that too. Like, hey, it's not like, such and such may not even play sports, but we want to help him find something that he likes and improve his self-confidence.
Mhm.
We've heard great things about Jerry at Viking Performance. Let's go check that out. So it finally like transcended beyond just the physical to where people are actually understanding the mental benefits of it as well, and like seeing it before they even start.
Mhm.
And to me, that's a big message for the community itself.
Mhm.
Is like because that's a big one. Because now, like I said, that's just one more tool, one more way that people can communicate to try to get those kids involved in something like strength training, correct strength training, to improve that confidence.
Mhm.
And again, like those things just come with like so many of those things just simply are interrelated. Like it's again, like I guess it's possible to be confident and have body dysmorphia or eating issues, but it's less like it's definitely less likely than if you're the exact same person but just have low confidence.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's stronger armor. That's all it is. Yeah, like your confidence is directly stronger armor. So if you do go to school and hear crap, or you're on social media and see crap, like anything like that, like you just have the more confident you are in yourself, the more the more armored you are against possibly going in down in like deeper, darker thoughts about that.
Mhm. I like that. So we'll kind of transition here a little bit because one thing I wanted to kind of run by you and hear your opinion on is I like what you're doing with young people as far as lifting. I think a lot of people are afraid to have their kids lift or do this stuff because they're afraid of loading their joints and all of these things. But I will say anecdotally, right? And I'm just kind of shooting from the hip there, but anecdotally, my clients that have been in a really physical career or grew up in a really physical home, myself included, right? I grew up on a farm, so I was always throwing hay, chopping firewood, moving things around, carrying buckets of water, have more body awareness. So I feel like a lot of the there you're seeing more and more youth now that don't have body awareness,
Yes.
proprioception around their movement because they're not actually getting out and moving the way that humans were meant to move.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because I'm huge into that type of like thinking and that type of work. And so just to give perspective for like listeners or anything like that, we are where I said we're a strength and conditioning gym. It's a very free weight based approach we have here. Like it's so again, people are having to move more quote unquote naturally because more of the exercises are standing up, at most sitting down, very few machines. And we also happen to be, well, like we met at the conference, we also have a pretty big strength sport community. It's both powerlifting and strongman. And it's great because we'll get strongmen, strong women come in from 3 hours away just to train sometimes, just to get a training day because of like the atmosphere and the equipment and stuff like that. And when I bring that up, it's while something like strongman is so different to so many people still, it's honestly more relatable to quote unquote normal physical life than most exercises are in a gym.
Mm-hmm.
Like because it's basically because a lot of people think strongman is a thing. And I mean, that's part of it. It's like, it's actually not. It generally just means like who's the best prepared to do things that involved at least some sort of heavy weight, but that might be a max effort, it might be a max weight lifted, which is just a max effort. It might be something you have to carry, which might be for maximum distance. It might be for speed. It might be for repetitions. Um, again, the lifting itself might be it's going to be a heavy weight, but it might be for max, or it might be for reps. It might also be for speed. Like, so literally every, like, strength, speed, and endurance and movement are all encapsulated in something like strongman.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, it's a great training tool, but it's also a great reminder that, like, we're very big on not on specifically not having a training philosophy, how
Mm-hmm.
most people define it as, oh, we're like, we do like a powerlifting style, or we have a hit style, or we have a CrossFit style. That's how most people define a training philosophy. Here, it's all a tool. Like, it's all a tool. Like when I was at WVU, I taught too. Like, and that's kind of when I came up with this. Like, I had 12 years of teaching college classes, and I remember telling a lot of those students that in the end, like, there's no such thing in turn, like, as an as an Olympic lift, or as a CrossFit exercise. It all started off as moving your body to create X result or X amount of force to move or hold, this, or move from point A to point B, how fast do you want it? Like, moving the body is the goal. So like I said, like, getting the body to do something and become better at a movement is the goal. So every single exercise or training program you do is just a tool to make that goal happen. And so to wrap that all up is that, like, that is what so many basic movements used to do. And that's still the goal. So like I said, when people don't do that nearly as much anymore, either when they're growing up or even as an adult, it's like I said, they do lose that. Like I mentioned way back at the beginning about the kids with the perfect squat form. Again, if they eventually lose that, sitting all the time, you lose stuff like that. Like, research shows that when you sit all day, or at least like multiple hours, your hip flexors actually lose sarcomeres. So they actually literally become shorter. So if you're not moving them or something like that, your hip flexors are actually getting smaller. As well as, like, tons of research out there on the negative effects of too much sitting. Like a complete day of bed, not many people go through this, but a complete day of bed rest can lose up from 2 to 7% of your strength one day. Like,
Wow.
that'll come back. But that is a perfect example simply of how much your body is not designed to just simply sit around and not move like that.
Mm-hmm.
It is how much it can lose when it really isn't allowed to move. And there's all sorts of like hints and tools throughout different sports that show you this. Like, I'm such a nerd, but it's like, where, like, for example, say a distance running, but not even crazy distance running. Say, take like a 5K, a
Mm-hmm.
like basic, 5K. Your world-class athletes are looking like 14, 15 minutes. Good other athletes, you're just good runners in general, are looking at like the higher tens, things like that. But so it's not that long. It's long, but it's not that long. But the biggest markers and improvement, like the best way you can find out who the athletes are probably going to be, are how much total distance are they running in a week. It's not who runs the fastest. It's not who does the hardest, like, intense workouts through the week. It's through the week who did the most frequent, regular total mileage. So you get to the top where, like, okay, say high school I'm at right now, like 35 to 45 miles is a pretty sizable amount for a lot of these high schoolers over the week. Some of them might run a little bit more, some of them run less. That's pretty sizable. You get to college and a lot of them are pushing 70, 80, 90 miles a week. I got to work with some of the, like, girls at WVU, who after college turned pro and ran pro, including one girl who ran for the Canadian Olympic team in 2008 5K. She was a 5K champion her senior year in college. Another girl was more of a marathon runner and finished her first marathon ever was Boston. Was that the first? No, I think that's slightly wrong. Her biggest one was Boston, and she finished 16th, her first time ever doing the Boston Marathon. And both of them ran like 120 to 140 miles a week.
Wow.
Again, but that was even the girl who did the 5K, like, ran 140 miles a week. So it's like, who did the most regular fitness stuff? And you see that all the time, like, anybody who just loves to see these type of things. Like if you don't know a man by the name of Ode Haugen, so like you need to go find out about him. It's spelled ODD, like odd, ODD space HAUGEN. He lives in California now. But he has literally done everything. He was like a bodybuilder and like he's literally a Viking. He's from Norway. He made his own weight sets when he was like 10. He was a bodybuilder. He's the oldest man who have ever competed in the open class at World's Strongest Man. He was a championship powerlifter. He trains since the beginning of this other guy's career. He's trained Martins Lysis, who won 2019 World's Strongest Man. He's like one of the international presidents of a very small niche strength sport known as Moss Wrestling, and he runs he's been growing grip strength sports in the across the world. Like this man is like literally a strength legend, but he's 72, 73 years old now, and still, like being like, oh, I'm gonna like pick up a 400-pound deadlift on a like 2.5-inch fat bar with my bare hands. Like he did a fat bar behind the back deadlift with 400 some pounds, like 3 months after hip surgery, after a hip replacement. But anyway, the reason I bring that up is he will say very blatantly his biggest thing is move every single day. Every single day. And you look back and I say he's like the best example now, but you look back at a lot of these classic old time strongman type thing, or like because you see that, and that was always the common thread was do some movement almost all the time, almost every day, which just goes a lot back more, like you said, like the farming lifestyle or simply the manual labor lifestyle. Just do something all the time. And you'll see that too, because like look at a lot of the athletes now, like look at your, say, NFL guys, or pro bodybuilders, something like that. Like none of them are healthy in their 40s, 50s, 60s, or it's a very small it's a minority percentage of them. Whereas look at a lot of those more old-fashioned guys, so just different types of athletes, whether like in any sport or something like just old strongmen before strongmen with the sport, and it was more of a spectacle, really. But what brings it all together is like they all did movement almost every single day. So it's ironic, like what they may have known less training science. Like there may be a lot more stuff now about measuring power outputs and all that stuff and movement patterns, but they had figured out the most important part was to just keep working out and keep moving. Like they had figured that part out. And, anyway, it's funny because if to me this really shows it. The single hardest thing like that you'll find is most people now, like whether it's teenagers or adults, if they have not been shown how or trained, most people will not be able to keep their posture straight, hinge their hips, and be able to keep their knees like in that semi-flexed stiff position at the same time. Like that's to me, like in the performance world, that's the like trifecta is straight back posture, hinge the hips. Can you do that keeping your knees slightly bent but stiff? Most people can't do those three things together. Like something will go. Like they straighten their back and they'll have to lock their knees, or they bend their knees and they can no longer hinge their hips and they just lean their back forward, like things like that. So, and that is really close. Like that with just basically squatting or like to the ground, are basically like your two most basic human movements you're supposed to be able to do.
So what's kind of move forward here now into the future, because that is the hardest, most overwhelming part, right? Is as we age, it gets harder and harder to find a sustainable fitness program. And then you also have all this propaganda out there saying, okay, as an adult, you have to work out like 7 days a week and do all this cardio and stuff in order to maintain fitness. And it's absolutely not true. So can you just, for the last part of this podcast, can we kind of talk about creating sustainable fitness and what it could look like through all ages?
Yeah, for sure. And I tell you what, like you just posted a few days ago on your social media a perfect message, which was, yeah, like 20, 30 minutes is still better than nothing. Like, I mean, that was so key. And so many people do miss out on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I struggle with, I have struggled with that in the past, is that, I mean, I think the biggest thing for one is being aware that, like being aware slash learning that it doesn't have to be just like you said, like the full intense workout all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you were able to do it when you're 19 doesn't mean you have to be able to do it when you're 39. You
Mm-hmm.
can, I mean, you can by all means, if things have been going well and you like just if things have been lining up for you, you can definitely be in better shape in your 40s, 50s, 60s, even older than you were in high school. Like
Oh,
you,
I most certainly am.
yeah,
I was
yeah. So
actually literally the other day I was training and I was like, there's no way in hell I could have done this as a teenager or even in my 20s. And what the heck,
right.
I'm
Yeah,
and
exactly. So like lesson number one is don't think because we're talking about sustaining a workout program, that means it has to be lesser. That's definitely not the message we're getting at here.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
to make it work is being way more honest with yourself, I think, about what you can handle and where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, there's a lot of different talk about this out there. Like some people might talk about like seasons of life or this, that. If you are an athlete, it might be off season, in season, postseason, preseason, whatever. But I simply mean be honest about all the things you're juggling. And
Mm-hmm.
once you can do that, and at that point, fit like decide where to prioritize or fit in some form of healthy activity, that right there is going to be your key.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like so like again, I'll just use me as an example here. In this case, is I am an example of that person who is crazy fit in their late teens and early 20s, and then I just became kind of like really strong. And then I learned that when you open a gym, your own business, surprise, the first workout that might go to trash is yours. Because you're focused on everything else.
Uh-huh.
And like working on that, and every injury that I've ever had has basically, like, if it wasn't somebody literally hitting me, every injury that I've ever had was basically definitely during a period of high stress,
Mm-hmm.
like high exhaustion. And even here, this year has actually been a very personally stressful year for me. That plus just making sure the business is going, wanting to focus on that type of thing, and then wanting to get my and continue improving my health. I want to feel strong again, all that stuff. I basically realized that I was never making it longer than 3 weeks. Like
Mm-hmm.
3 weeks is my key. Like I would, even if I would start a new workout program, and I tried all sorts of stuff. I tried full workouts. I tried very short workouts with only like 3 exercises, um, 3 days a week, 5 days a week, 2 days a week, light runs in between, walks in between, whatever. Like I basically, like in one year, I've tried a lot of different combinations, but week three was always my crucible. Like week three, the two programs that I actually saw through to the end for like 4 to 8 weeks were the only two times I made it successfully through week three. Um, so, for somebody else, that it might be day 5. For somebody else, it might be day 60. Like, or who knows? But I simply mean, like, I found where, for whatever reason, the combination of trying to keep up with my workout, that was the key. Trying to keep up with it was not realistically matching with what I was putting myself through, either through responsibility that I had to do with the gym or personal family life, whatever, or wanted to do. Like
Mm-hmm.
that combination was always breaking down after about 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So took a step back, decided what the number one main goal was like this year, like to go with that. This year's had a lot of like weight yo-yos.
Mm-hmm.
I've probably honestly changed a net of 100+ pounds this year.
Mm-hmm.
Like even though I'm probably like 6 pounds heavier than I started the year at, but that's
Mm-hmm.
how many pluses and minuses I've gone through personally. And but so I'm like, okay, I definitively feel better when I'm under 235. Like I have an eventual goal of getting like 215. I definitively feel better under 235. I just noticed that I'm 234 and a half or 235 and a half. It's like two totally different worlds.
Mm-hmm.
And I was up like 247 at one point, was like, this really sucks.
Yeah.
So again, it's like just basically learning those things, where I was at, where my weakness was, again, combining those things for 3 weeks or longer, being my personal weakness, and then deciding, okay, what is the real priority? How can I work that with these other issues?
Mm-hmm.
So priority number one for me was get to feeling better with my energy again. To make that happen, I need to get under 235. Again, like that's what I've learned about my body.
Mm-hmm.
And with everything else that I'm currently trying to get done, the best way for me to do that is just consistent, daily, but very low stress training,
Mm-hmm.
quote unquote training. So right now, I'm just at a point where I'm just taking a few weeks to try to walk an hour every day, every night.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Like nothing hard, no pace. I can either be quiet, like internally meditate, think, or freaking work. Sometimes it's like that's my messaging time. I'm making like putting
Yeah.
ideas in. Whatever comes to me, it's like as long as I'm getting that hour walk in, it's good. And that's helping me again, like because I do drop weight pretty quickly when I actually stay consistent. I just
Mm-hmm.
also go backwards when as soon as I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so like, and again, like it's as simple as that was. It was just simply basically failing a bunch of times, but then finally going, okay, this is the combination of why. So how do I
Mm-hmm.
make it work long enough to make that first goal happen?
Right.
So and it's like the first goal was simply feel better. To be honest, like I said,
Mm-hmm.
235 is just because I happen to have a number attached to that goal that I know is real.
Yeah.
You don't need one. You don't need to have that like, oh, I need to lose 10 pounds to stay like something like that. If your goal is simply feel better, again, find this. So to me, that would basically be the actual tip is find the lowest barrier form of sticking with something and then do
Mm-hmm.
that long enough to see the progress
Mm-hmm.
and then decide what you're going to do next.
Absolutely. That's exactly basically what I preach, right? Is figure out what you can do, even if it's undershooting it, which I'd rather somebody undershoot it and they're like, oh, this is easy, because it's easy to let it grow. Like you have so much room for growth that start small, be consistent about the small things and then add on later on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Like I said, so many people have that all or nothing mentality when it comes to fitness.
Yeah.
And like it's just funny because like I said, I love intensity. I said I like doing strong things.
Yeah.
I have personal interest of like how like can I run 10 miles eventually? Like it's just not my thing. And I work with a lot of distance runners. So again, it's not like I'm only in one world.
Mm-hmm.
But nevertheless, I was like, okay, like right now it's not the greatest idea to work on that. Let me just simply get myself to feel better, stay consistent, because again, like in almost everything that you do when it comes to fitness, being able to do it regularly and long term trumps anything else.
Absolutely. Well, I love that. So, Jerry, if people want to follow you and your rubber chicken adventures, how do they do that?
And Halloween's coming up, so there's going to be good ones for that too.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, like I try to be like the two that I'm trying to be most regular on are definitely Instagram and Facebook. On Facebook, I mean, you can, I still have plenty of friend requests. So there's either just Jerry Handley, which is where I do post most of the things on Facebook. And then I generally share them over to the Viking Performance Training Facebook page. On Instagram, though, the two main accounts is the Real Viking Performance just the Real Viking Performance. Just one word, no anything like that. That's the business one. Unfortunately, it's relatively new, meaning because Instagram took down my original profile that was 6 years old. So much classic gold on that, lost forever. But then said like the Real Viking Performance, and then you can follow me personally, which is a slightly different take on Real Jerry Handley on Instagram.
I love it. Well, I'm so thankful that you took a little time out of your busy schedule today to join me and talk shop about coaching young people and also some sustainable fitness.
Yeah, freaking loved it. Great talk. Like going in, I always end up learning just as much stuff like in any of these talks as anybody else does. So
that's what I love about podcasting. I love talking. I mean, obviously, we were joking out. We were hiking up this mountain the other day, and I was like, my son was just talking like crazy, and my husband goes, yeah, if he's not talking, he's not breathing. And he said he gets that from somebody else I know. And I was like, I said, I have to work out my vocal cords every day. That is part of my workout routine.
That's awesome.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Jerry. I appreciate it.
God, thank you. It was a freaking great time. Like, love it. And yeah, I mean, definitely going to look forward to just staying in touch in the future.
Awesome.